Dozens of Syrian security officers have reportedly been killed in twin bombings in the country's south. This is the latest spate of violence in the escalating conflict, which has already claimed the lives of tens of thousands of people. RT's Middle East correspondent Paula Sleer has the latest.
Now, what we understand is that there was an apparent double suicide attack. According to activists on the ground, the blast went off near a branch of the country's military intelligence in Dara, that the explosions were followed by clashes between regime forces and rebels. Now, targets on security institutions have become quite commonplace recently in Syria. Earlier this week, there was an attack in the province of Hama. Now, Al-Qaeda claimed responsibility for that attack. Dozens of Assad loyalists were killed. While this violence is happening in Syria, the Syrian opposition is meeting quite far away in the Qatari capital of Doha. Now, there they are deciding their fate. This essentially is a meeting that has been called because many of the international backers of the Syrian opposition, particularly the United States, are unhappy with the deep divisions within the Syrian opposition. And at this stage, it seems as if those divisions are going to prevent the Syrian opposition from coming forward with any kind of a viable new opposition body. The whole idea of this meeting in Doha was essentially to establish some kind of group within the Syrian opposition in exile that would have more direct links with the opposition inside the country, that would be able to better distribute aid and funding. But the group is being accused of not being representative enough, this despite the fact that the main opposition body, the Syrian National Council, just yesterday, Friday, did elect a new head. There are also critics who complain that the new legislative body being put forward is not representative enough. It does not have enough women, and it certainly does not have enough minorities. The Free Syrian Army, which is the main armed opposition group in the country, meanwhile, has threatened the Syrian President Bashar Assad that he'll follow the fate of the former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. This, as Assad said in an exclusive interview to RT, that he has no plans to leave office. The FSA media department head said that Assad is doomed. Take a listen.
In his statement to your channel, he said he would not leave Syria. We know this very well because he will not be able to leave Syria. He and his people will not manage to leave the country. The Free Syrian Army will not let him do this. He will not get out of Syria alive. He'll be lucky if he meets the same fate as Muammar Gaddafi.
So what we're witnessing is an increase on the ground in terms of violence inside Syria, while the Syrian opposition really struggling to try and form a united group to try and deal with the situation.
All right, well, the group that has positioned itself as the rebellion's political leadership has again failed to unite the opposition. The Syrian National Council, which of course operates in exile, has been disavowed by the local Syria-based local coordination committees. Reaction now from Sabah Al-Mukhtar. He's the president of the Arab Lawyers Association. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Given these developments, how much credibility do you feel the SNC has at this moment?
Well, the SNC has the only credibility it had was with the Western powers. We all remember when the US forced many countries to attend a meeting in Turkey to recognize this as the legitimate and only representative of Syria, which was part of the political gimmick that the US and the Western powers, NATO, France, Britain, were following, because what they wanted is the change of regime. But this is a unique case whereby there is a true revolution within Syria, but those who are recognized by the US and others have absolutely nothing to do with the inside. Most of them have never been there. Most of them have been out of the country for tens of years, and the US knew that, and the West knew that, but they were still nevertheless recognized as the representative of the people. Now they've come to realize that actually the revolution is going on in Syria. There is the Free Army, there is the people who are revolting in Syria, and they have no links with the external people who are claiming to represent them. So I don't think they had credibility before. I don't think they will have credibility at the present moment, because this is an attempt to create a revolution or a revolutionary body. If we look at all the circumstances where there was an uprising in these countries, it all was domestically, it was all internal, they were all inside. You have the same thing in Tunis, in Egypt, in Yemen, and in Syria it began like that. But then the West created this something outside, and they called it the representative. Now they've come to realize that they have to change the picture. So I think they are trying to produce a different scenario on that one.
Well, certainly it seems like the voices on the ground are unfortunately the ones being excluded here. But, if you look at the situation, I mean, on one hand, you have Assad digging in saying that he refuses to go. On the other hand, very few voices from the opposition willing to sort of see a future with Assad in place. How, in your view, are international mediators or Syrians themselves supposed to broker a peace deal, given this that the two sides are so deeply entrenched and at odds?
Well, I'm not so sure this is correct. This is the view that is being percolated by the media. Most of the spokesperson you talk to are people who are outside Syria. The Syrians, certainly the whole population of Syria, no longer want the Ba'ath Party, no longer want Assad. There is no doubt about that one. But how do you go about this? The idea that somehow an airplane come down whereby Assad gets on that one and takes off and another airplane comes, brings in the new rulers, this is a nonsensical exercise. It's not true. What is going to happen and will have to happen is that an exit policy whereby you transfer the authority from the Ba'athists and from Bashar al-Assad to the people who are going to be there. The problem we have at the present moment, there are quite a lot of divisions, and these divisions are in fact being fed by others. Most of the countries are backing one group or another, so you have the US and the Western powers assisting some of them and not assisting the others on the basis either they are Islamist or they are whatever other names they have for them. You have Turkey supporting others and not the third one. You have the situation of Iraq next door to them. The government in Iraq, Maliki, is supporting Bashar al-Assad and his regime, while the people in Iraq, in the Western side of Iraq, are supporting the revolution. So everybody is interfering in there. That's why the picture is such a mutilated one. And I think the external powers would have to follow the general line that has been promoted by Russia, China, and the other countries, that there must be a political solution. But at the present moment, the West continues to pour arms, and now they want to create the vehicle that they can give them the arms, provided that this vehicle is not going to use the arms against the West. Just like what they've done with Taliban, just like they've done with many other instances. They create these institutions on the basis that they will be our friends, they will be the people who represent our interests, i.e. Western countries, and then once the picture changes, they become against us. We have the same situation in many countries, and I think this is what the risk we have at the moment in Syria.
Well, if you say that the only way for peace then is for these external powers to stop their interference, how realistic is that, quite briefly?
Well, I think it is probably realistic. I think at the present moment, if the countries, if there is sufficient pressure is being placed and on these countries, like in particular the US and European countries, and exposed what is being exported, that I think would put moral pressure on them. And I think the Western powers have come to the conclusion now, probably, that we need to somehow find a solution, and the solution can only come from a political one without using the force. I don't think they will give up as easy as that, but I think this is where we are heading.
All right, a sliver of optimism amid a lot of, unfortunately, tragic news coming out of Syria. Thank you so much. That was Saba Al-Mukhtar, the president of the Arab Lawyers Association.